Hey everybody, Rob Hunden here, CEO of Hunden Partners, and today I'm going to be talking to you about a very serious subject, economic and fiscal and jobs impact analysis. What does it mean? It's all about money and numbers. It's about return on investment for the public sector. Why do we do these impact analyses for almost every study and every project and every event that we look at? Because public money is often going into these projects, whether it's a public project or a public-private partnership, and the public needs to understand the return on their investment. They're not looking for an equity return. They are looking for, what is this going to do for my community? We know that parks are worthwhile. We know that infrastructure is worthwhile. We know that all kinds of things are worthwhile because we get a benefit out of it. When we're talking about convention centers and stadiums and arenas and headquarter hotels and mixed use districts and youth sports complexes and all of these different things and other attractions that are public-private partnerships or public-public investments, meaning they're totally funded by the public, we need to understand what are the net new dollars that are coming to our jurisdiction because of this project or this event. And what is that doing to support new jobs, full and part-time jobs in the community, as well as the taxes that it's going to generate of all the different kinds of taxes out there: income taxes, property taxes, sales taxes, hotel taxes, food and beverage taxes, ticket taxes, auto rental tax. There's taxes of all kinds. And every time there's new activity into a community, those taxes are benefited and impacted. So let's talk about the definition of economic impact. So first off, economic impact is the increase in economic spending due to a facility or an event. Mostly we are talking about new venues with lots of events in them. And so we have to measure the activity happening with each of those events in that venue to understand how money is flowing from outside the building into the building. We have three kinds of impact. We have direct impact, indirect impact, and induced impact. Direct impact is the first spending of any dollars because of an event or a venue. Somebody going and buying a ticket to an event, purchasing a hot dog and beer at an event, staying in a hotel and paying for that room because they came to your community for that event, renting a car and buying gas. Those are all examples of direct impact. It is the first wave of spending that occurs. Indirect impact is the second wave. Examples are when that hotel goes and buys supplies like linens for the guest rooms and food and beverage for the restaurant at the hotel. When the arena, convention center, or stadium goes and buys local produce for the salads that they make. Spending that is local in the community. So there's a certain portion that is localized spending, buying supplies, business to business, to support that spending on the direct impact, right? So that's the second wave, which is indirect. And then induced is the spending that occurs because people who made money personally by working in the industry, whether at the facility or in the economy, that was increased because of that, like a waiter or waitress that has more wages and then can buy their kids music lessons. The spending on those music lessons is an induced impact, right? And so on and so forth. Essentially, you have those three types, right? Now, do not confuse direct, indirect, and induced with gross and net. Let me explain the difference between gross impacts and net impacts. When we are talking about the return on investment that a community makes into a project, let's say it's an arena or a stadium, something like that. Not everybody who comes to that arena or stadium is from the local market. A lot of them are from outside the market coming to an event like a concert or a game at that venue. We don't want to count the recycled spending of entertainment dollars, food and beverage dollars, those kinds of things that locals would have spent anyway doing other entertainment and food and beverage outings in their community. But what we do want to count, because that's cannibalization, right? We're just shifting spending from one part of the local economy to the other. However, for those who are coming from out of town to an event, spending the night or making a day trip, all of their spending is net new to that jurisdiction. And then for people who would have left to go to a concert or sporting event in another jurisdiction, had this event and venue not been in this place, if we recaptured that spending, because they can now do it locally instead of having to leave town, we're recapturing formerly leaked spending and impact. So the net impacts, the definition of net impact, is the spending that is new, either recaptured that had been leaked, or induced new spending to the community and through the venue and the event at the venue, because this venue and event existed here. And so that is the difference between gross, which is all spending due to an event or a venue, versus net spending, which is net new to the community from the outside or recaptured formerly leaked spending. That is the major difference. And then as those net impacts flow through the economy, through the direct spending, the indirect spending, and the induced, that is all we count typically when we are doing an economic impact analysis. We don't count the total, because that counts cannibalization or recycled spending. Now, we care about that for other reasons, like how many taxes are going to be generated by the venue totally. But in terms of rationalizing the public's investment in this venue in the first place, it's only about considering what is net new to the community. So that net new spending from outside or recaptured spending that would have left the market. Then we have the fiscal benefits. The fiscal impacts of a venue, again, are gross and net. There are gross impacts on site that are generated from sales tax, food and beverage tax, ticket tax, all those kinds of things, property taxes from a venue or an event or a hotel or whatever the case may be. Those are gross. But typically, again, we're only wanting to count net. So the net fiscal benefits are the taxes that are generated from the net new spending. Again, induced from out of town or recaptured that would have left town in order to go and spend time at a venue or an event or a hotel or whatever, are now recaptured back. So the taxes that flow from those folks are able to be counted as net new fiscal impacts. Fiscal equals taxes, right? For the local government and also the state government. So we typically have city, county, and state, or provincial if we're in Canada, et cetera, et cetera. So that, again, is a difference between gross and net fiscal benefits to a community. And finally, we have the jobs impacts. We have the one-time job impacts of the construction of an event, venue, or setting up for an event in construction, consulting, engineering, you name it, that it takes to get something built. So those are one-time jobs for the development of the project. Then we have the ongoing jobs supported in the community, not just on site, but from all of that net new spending. Again, we're not counting gross spending. So we're saying of the dollars spent in the venue, the direct dollars spent, a portion of that is net new to the community. Then that flows into indirect and induced spending. And there's a percentage of that, often 25 to 35%, that ends up in somebody's pocket as earnings. And those earnings then support full-time and part-time positions. In the industry, we count them through full-time equivalent positions. And so the net new direct, indirect, and induced spending that occurs because of a project and events that are happening in the project. And that is also the outside spending that after they leave the venue and they stay in a hotel or they go to a restaurant. All of that spending that is net new to the community, about a third of that flows into somebody's pocket as earnings. And so those earnings support jobs, right? So full and part-time jobs are supported by this. And so those are the sort of concepts behind, and it's very simplistic in its concept, but the debates and analysis and the data sourcing that we go through to figure out what is net new, what they're spending on their per caps in the venue, outside the venue when they're doing things before and after the event that they attended. We spent a ton of time seriously debating those things internally and with our client teams to ensure that we're bulletproof. And so we need realistic per capita spending data within venues. We use our placer data to understand through cell phone tracking the percentage of people and the number of people coming from outside the jurisdiction into a jurisdiction. All of those things help us know how to make assumptions for these things. And once we have that great input data, we can make excellent assumptions that lead to this really strong bulletproof output data that then goes into these big reports that in summary seem like, wow, they came up with billions of dollars over 30 years of net new spending. Well, it seems like a pretty broad brush at that point because it's been simplified, but the detail behind it is super complex and interesting and intense, and involves lots of mapping, lots of data, lots of geolocation data, lots of spending data to make sure that we are not overcounting or undercounting the net new impact of an event or a venue on a location, whether that's a city, a county, a state, a province, you name it. It is very important that we get this right, because if the community at large is going to be putting in $100 million into a project, well, we better be sure that there's, $100 million in some sort of impact, whether it's fiscal or jobs or a combination of the two, that's emanating through the economy that we are assessing, so that we can all feel good about that investment as the public sector. So that's it for today. Keep making great places.